Hey there! We're Basic Liches. We're two D&D Dungeon Masters trying to learn Pathfinder 2nd Edition for the first time. In this video series, we're going through every class in the core rulebook for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and today, we're going through the Sorcerer.
This video is going to be a basic impressions. We're going to give you our opinions on a lot of things. We're going to give some facts and go over some class mechanics as well. We're going to paint a picture, let you know how a day in the life of a sorcerer goes. And then at the end, we're going to have some GM tips and compare this to the 5th edition Sorcerer. So stay tuned to the end of the video for that.
We're not doing a deep dive today on the Sorcerer, we're just going level 1 and using core rulebook options. When we're thinking about sorcerers, what do we want from this class? What are you thinking?
You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that reading books is for suckers, school's for losers, and wizards suck. Who wants to do all that hard work when you can just luck into some sweet, sweet magic powers like a sorcerer? You don't need to invest all that time to learn magic. All you need is a horribly mutated bloodline. Maybe your great-grandpappy sold his soul for a loaf of pumpernickel? Guess what? He's dead, and you got born with a diabolic bloodline, baby. Let's make some deals.
Maybe he's born with it.
Maybe it's diabolicaline.
Diabolicaline. I love that slogan. Maybe it's natural. Maybe it's not.
Maybe it's not. Alrighty, Kamo, if you're looking to pop culture, media, and you want to get inspired for your sorcerer in Pathfinder, lay it on me. Give me some options.
As soon as I think of Sorcerer, I think of a lot of different X-Men characters. Think of Storm, Jean Grey, just the innate ability, and maybe this latent ability. Maybe it just emerges later in their life to this incredible power from within that they need to kind of wield, understand, and tame. And then also the Jedi from Star Wars. They're definitely monks/sorcerers, right? And I think nothing tells this better than one of the most recent Tales from the Jedi. This is little spoilers, just fast forward a little bit if you don't want to hear this. But like Ahsoka's baby story, I absolutely loved because they've never really told a story about a Jedi youngling and how they have discovered the Force sensitivity of that youngling. And they do that with Ahsoka. There are some creatures in the Star Wars world that have Force sensitivity and can sense Force sensitivity. So she is like taken by this big tiger creature and basically wants to eat baby Ahsoka, but you know, the tiger has baby Ahsoka in the den and can't do it. The baby Ahsoka is just not scared at all and like looking into the creature's eyes like, and the creature just like knows and brings the child back to the village. And that's how the whole village knows that she's Force sensitive. So I feel like things like that in a sorcerer's story are entirely epic.
They also talked about Anakin Skywalker. Qui-Gon was like, let's check his midichlorian.
Oh no.
We're off the charts, Kamo.
I'm trying to forget that one. I'm just going to scan you. That's a good origin for your sorcerer. We scanned you. We cast detect magic.
You have this weird cancerous thing inside your body that lets you do magic.
It's your blood.
It's your blood. For me, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to think of John Carpenter's classic movie, Big Trouble in Little China. Let's get bad here and go with Lo Pan, the evil villain of that movie, played by the amazing James Hong. Lo Pan is amazing. He's got like minions at his disposal. He's incredibly charismatic. He can grow like 7 feet tall. He's like incorporeal. He's been cursed by like a god or something. He can do all sorts of cool shit. And when it comes down to fighting, he throws down with Egg Shen. Totally badass sorcerer. You never see him reading a book. You never see him like going over ancient scrolls or anything. He's just got that sweet, sweet mutant blood, baby.
Let's get into some simple mechanics about our sorcerer. Our key ability score is going to be charisma. We could support that with a little bit of dexterity for kind of toss up our AC a bit. That's a good sub attribute to have.
Maybe Constitution gets you a little bit more H-Pizzle,
Yeah, but it's all about that charisma.
which is what you're using to cast your spells and talk to people. Before we get any deeper, if you want to take a moment to pause the video, you can look at all of the level 1 proficiencies for the Sorcerer somewhere here. Let's go over some key terms that you're going to need to know about at level 1 if you decide to roll up a Sorcerer. The very first key term that the book wants us to be aware of is metamagic, which has been covered in some of the other spellcasting classes. Essentially, metamagic is a trait that appears on a feature or a feat, and it lets you tweak the properties of a spell. You just have to do this prior to casting the spell if you want to be able to take advantage of the metamagic.
Then for the most defining feature of this class is the bloodline. The bloodline that you choose is going to give you your spellcasting talent. This choice determines the types of spells that you cast, the spell list that you cast them from, the additional spells that you can learn, and the additional trained skills that you can get.
You also gain focus points and focus spells based on your bloodline. And a cool thing that happens is anytime you cast a spell granted by your bloodline, you get to activate your blood magic effect. Real quick, we want to crush through the 10 bloodlines that are available in the core rulebook only. We're not doing any advanced player guide options here. Also, we are not giving you all the details. This is just a little snapshot of what they are. If you want more details, we'll have a link down in the nether region below.
10 bloodlines, here we go. Aberrant.
The Aberrant bloodline is a strange, unknowable influence that gives you access to occult spells.
Angelic.
Holy grace bestows divine spells upon you.
Demonic.
A sinful corruption gives you divine spells.
Diabolic.
A bond with a devil gives you divine spells.
Draconic.
The blood of dragons grants you arcane spells.
Elemental.
The elements manifest in you as primal spells.
Fey.
Influence from the Fey gives you primal spells.
Hag.
The blight of a hag has given you occult spells.
Imperial.
An ancient power gives you arcane spells.
Undead.
The touch of death gives you divine spells. Sorcerer spellcasting. Your bloodline provides you with an incredible amount of power, and this lets you cast spells using the cast spell ability. What this really means is that when you're casting a spell, you can use material, verbal, and somatic components to cast a spell. But because you're a sorcerer, you can usually forego using material components.
Each day you can cast up to 3 first-level spells. You must know the spells to cast them, and you can learn the spells through your spell repertoire feature. The number of spells that you can cast per day is called your spell slots.
Like all other spellcasters, we have to learn about heightening spells, but don't fret! At level 1, you don't have to worry about this because it doesn't come into play until level 2, so we're not going to cover it here.
Then we get cantrips. Cantrips are a special type of spell that doesn't cost any slots to cast. We can cast them any number of times per day. We can choose 4 at first level, and then we get 1 additional cantrip from our bloodline for a total of 5.
From your blood! From your blood! Let's talk about your spell repertoire. Your spell repertoire is your collection of spells that you can cast. You can cast any number of them as long as you have an available spell slot of the spell level that you're trying to cast. At first level, you can learn 2 spells of level 1, and then you're going to gain 1 from your bloodline as well, for a total of 3. You can have more spells than you have spell slots, but as long as you have spell slots of the appropriate level spell, you can cast them.
You can change those spells out during downtime or when you level up. If you feel like you were born with it and you were just meant to watch Basic Glitches, please hit the subscribe button for more content weekly. Toll the Dead for notifications.
We want to hear from y'all. Go ahead and drop us some lovin' in the comments down below. Tell us about your favorite sorcerer that you're playing. Correct us on the things that we got wrong because we're noobs, and be kind to everyone down there. We love you. It is time. We are going to give you a sample example of a sorcerer in the Day of the Life. Take it away, Kamo.
We're new in town, and we're gonna have to impress the tavern owner if we're gonna be getting a gig for our traveling troupe. Mauricio the Rogue is our trusty assistant. The tavern owner's highest stat is charisma, but we're gonna flip that upside down by using our hag bloodline jealous hex. That is gonna give him a +1 stupefy when he fails. Then we'll be able to coerce and lie our way into getting a gig. We're able to book the entire tavern for a one-night special premiere.
Smash cut to a few hours later. We as a sorcerer are performing on stage. We are doing sleight of hand card tricks. We're making coins disappear, peppering it with some prestidigitation to make it look all fancy. And while that's going on, the rogue, she is snooping around, sneaking around the crowd. She is stealing coin purses and personal belongings of all the folks, because as well paying of a gig as this is, we're gonna make way more money just straight up stealing from these fools. But unfortunately, she makes a critical fumble during a suspenseful moment in the show. The crowd is onto us. The jig is up. We look at each other, we lock eyes. Escape plan A. We've run in opposite directions, and we know that we will meet somewhere in a safe space outside of town. Let's get the hell out of here!
Let's go, Scoop! We leap off stage with a blast of color spray to stun any nearby witnesses, and we bound into the marketplace with guards close behind us. We turn and we see that the kitchen door to the bakery is open, and we dart in to try to shut off some of the guards. As we pass the threshold, we turn around and slam the door, and we cast lock on the door. And then we stumble past a few of the bakers. Half of the guards ram into the door and try to get it open, and they can't. The other half go around the bakery and start heading down the walkway.
We emerge from the back door of the bakery, a couple baguettes in hand. We see that the guards are making their way around the building, still chasing us. We book it up the street, and it starts to incline up a hill, and we see a fruit cart. This is a prime opportunity. This fruit cart is being held in place by a single wedge of wood. We are going to use our cantrip telekinetic projectile to grab that wedge of wood and fling it backwards at the guards.
Ha! You missed!
But did we? As that happens, the cart starts rolling down the hill very fast, and it smashes into a bunch of the guards. And we use that distraction to scamper up the hill and make our escape.
We crest over the top of the hill, and once we're out of sight from the guards, we cast illusory disguise on ourselves to make us look like an old beggar. We slowly limp towards the gates of the town. The guards approach us, and they ask us if we've seen a hag run by. We mischievously point them in the wrong direction, and continue and leave town.
What a wonderful adventure, a wonderful day in the life of a sorcerer. I loved it. But now it's time to aggravate some of you on YouTube by getting to the opinion portion of the video, where we go over some pros and cons and a few other things.
Let's make assumptions.
Let's do it. All right, Kamo, how do you feel about the sorcerer? Give us some pros here.
Pros. Man, so many choices. Why is this not in every other class? There are classes that have some good choices, but not as many as this. There's great role-playing flavor and plenty of opportunity for the GM to tell your story just from the class itself.
I like how the bloodlines sort of guide you gently towards creating like thematic sorcerers. They let you follow a theme, because that's kind of how I always build my spellcasters, whether it's D&D, Dungeon Crawl Classics, whatever. I always want my spellcasters to have spells that sort of fit a theme. I don't just like taking Fireball because it's powerful. If it doesn't make sense for my wizard, my sorcerer, my bard to have that, then I don't take it. The bloodlines just sort of guide you. They give you specific spell lists that you have access to, and then they're granting you spells as you level up. That stuff's really, really cool. And it just seems like the sorcerer is going to be really powerful. We've got some cons. We've got some terrible, terrible things to say about the sorcerer.
Man, I'm pissed off.
It's a lie. Neither of us could come up with a single con that really would be like anything other than nitpicky bullshit.
Now, we were trying to dig up something. We're like, what can we find that is annoying about this? Or I really couldn't think of anything.
Nope, same here.
I don't know.
It's a perfect class.
It's perfect. It really is. So, Wolf, what type of player is going to be playing this class?
I believe that if you're the actor, the person that is really into role playing, but you also like to be like powerful and useful at the table, so you're like half min-maxer, half actor, the person that you're describing all your spells, but you're kind of like this weirdo spellcaster with this gnarly background of your bloodline. That type of stuff gives you background, it gives you personality traits, it gives you quirk. The bloodline is so flavorful for the sorcerer. And then on top of that, you get to choose a bunch of spells, which even more so defines you. It's really, really perfect for that person that just wants to start, what do we say, skin suiting?
Yeah. I feel like Sorcerer is the class that typical marshals jump into first. Or when they feel like they want to jump into spellcasting, they like multi-class into Sorcerer. I've seen that a lot. Especially in Dungeons & Dragons, they're like, oh, I'm going to try casting a few spells. Let me jump into Sorcerer. What do we think about learning and playing this class? How difficult do we think that is?
We sort of hinted at this earlier. Neither of us really think that this is like super difficult.
No.
Out of a 5 scale, which is how we rate these typically, I have it at like a 3 out of 5. I think for noobs like us coming into Pathfinder, it's not that hard at all. You have spells to learn, yes. You have a few feats and features at first level.
But it's not the Alchemist.
No. Game Masters, if you have a sorcerer rampaging at your table, we've got some tips and tricks for y'all.
If you're running with a Sorc in your party, make sure you're leaning into the themes for the bloodline that they have chosen. If they chose the occult bloodline with the aberrant bloodline, then throw those occult creatures in there to get them mixed into their bloodline, mixed into their background, and make it part of their backstory.
Another thing you might want to drop into your campaign is have people fear sorcerers. It's something that some folks just aren't going to understand, especially if you're kind of in some backwoodsy area or the mountains where they don't see a lot of city folk, and they're just like, you get your magic from your blood. They're not going to like that. They're going to be super freaked out by you. Plus, like, some of them, like, you have demonic blood, you have devil's blood, you have hag blood. You have sort of this weird tainted bloodline about you, which could just freak people out.
Time to compare this class to 5th edition Sorcerer. What's the big difference?
The big difference here is the lack of meta magic. I hear you. You're like, well, you said meta magic was a key term. Yes, it is a key term in Pathfinder. Almost all the spellcasters have access to that. It's a trait that shows up in feats. In 5th edition, meta magic is a core ability of the sorcerer. You get these sorcerer points, you get these points that you're allowed to spend on meta magic, and they let you tweak your spells and do all sorts of cool stuff, but you can only pick a few of them out of a list, and you have a finite pool of resources to spend. Like many things in 5th edition, it kind of sucks because you're kind of hamstrung by the coolest thing you can do with your class. You're like, I can only do it like a couple times. This is stupid. So I am personally relieved that that is gone. I do not have to worry about that as a sorcerer in Pathfinder. I can just focus on the spells that I have. I can focus on my bloodline, and I can get really, really creative in my spell list to have something that fits the theme and background of the character that I have crafted for my campaign. Another really nice thing about the sorcerer in Pathfinder 2e is that if you're familiar how sorcerers and bards and most of the spellcasters work in 5e using this spell slot system where it doesn't matter how many spells you've learned, as long as you have spell slots of a certain level, you can cast said spells. With the wizard, we believe there's almost like a Vancian magic system in Pathfinder, and a couple of the other spellcasters have this as well. So if you want to cast Magic Missile more than one time a day, you have to prepare it more than once per day. The sorcerer doesn't have to deal with that. It's the same thing as a 5e spellcaster. You have spell slots, you have spells that you innately know, and as long as you have spell slots that match that level, you can fire them off. So if you've played a spellcaster in 5e, you're good to go.
So being used to Dungeons & Dragons, I feel like we're kind of used to flavor. Mm-hmm. Dungeons & Dragons has a lot of flavor built into their classes for role-playing and for story building. And I think when we run into things in Pathfinder that lack it, it's very noticeable to us.
Yes.
Right? So that's why we make a big deal with anathemas. At the beginning of the series, a lot of the classes in the beginning had anathemas, barbarian and champion and cleric, right? And we make a big deal of that because, well, in the class is baked in everything, right? We want to see everything in every class. Reasons for roleplay, reasons for exploration, reasons for combat. And it's kind of disappointing to see a class that is solely focused on combat, because that means that that player, if they're not always into combat, there are players, yes, that just love the combat, and that's what they want to get to, but it's even bad for that character too, for that player, because they're sitting there during role-playing sessions, and they're like, I just want to get to the fighting. Let's get to the fighting because that's what my character does. And that's a problem. So you need a character, you need a player engaged at all times, and their class needs to reflect all sides of play. So that's why we make such a big deal about anathemas. And those martial classes that we reviewed in between, they were lacking that. And now we're back with the Sorcerer. It doesn't have anathemas, but it has this bloodline system. And the bloodline abilities are going to give tons of juicy flavor to jump into roleplay and to use that.
Yes, we understand that any player can bring role-playing opportunities. You do not need the book to tell you to do that. But what we'd like is that if it's hard-coded, if it's already baked into it, it's less of a pulling it out of your players, and people are just more apt to just sort of do it at the table because it's in the rules already, that they're already on their mind, especially for new players.
Yeah. A lot of the times, new players and even seasoned players are reluctant to jump into something that's made up and not from the book.
That's true. That's very true.
Right?
Yep.
So like the Dungeon Master or GM is trying to push this extra feature on a player, and a lot of players feel like it's unnecessary because the GM or DM is making this up. Some people will enjoy that and appreciate it, but yeah, it just works a lot better if it's just there.
And it's there with the Sorcerer. The bloodlines are awesome. They're super flavorful. You get a ton of abilities from them, and they really should actually, yes, so you're getting them. There's no actual like hard-coded stuff and rules that you have to follow. It's not like you're going to lose them or anything.
No.
But they're just like sort of kickstart your imagination with all these awesome ideas for your backstory and character quirks and your personality.
Encounter building.
And all sorts of different things. It's just there. So we really like that stuff. We really think that the Sorcerer class is damn near perfect. It's probably like the best one that we've covered so far, if we're being honest with you.
Well, that's it. That's our thoughts on the Sorcerer. Having first looked at it, looks pretty sweet to us. Hope you liked this video, guys. Please comment, like the video, subscribe to Basic Liches. We got our playlist over here for the basic impressions of the classes, and another Pathfinder video over there. Later, Liches.
Don't forget to subscribe right here. Blood magic. Bye.